In this video, we're going to talk about a Stephen King classic put to celluloid, Firestarter. Firestarter is a 1984 horror thriller action film directed by Mark Lester and stars Drew Barrymore, David Keith, Heather Locklear, Martin Sheen, George C. Scott, Louise Fletcher, Art Carney, Moses Gunn, Freddie Jones, and more. In Firestarter, a man with telepathic abilities is on the run from the government with his pyrokinetic daughter, trying desperately to find a place that they can just live and not be hassled, but the government won't stop until they have them again. So Firestarter is one of those movies that's always been around for me ever since I was a child, sort of in the background. It's like I remember seeing that image of, little Drew Barrymore with her hair kind of, floating and the fire in the background. And for some reason, I just never saw the movie. I remember seeing that image, that poster, but I never actually saw the film. So it popped up on HBO Max. I thought, I'm gonna watch this. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good for the most part. It does feel a little bit like maybe like a one step above like a made for TV movie of the time. I feel like that was a result of the time that it was made, because in the late 70s, early 80s, they made some really higher budget Stephen King films. The Shining is probably one of the biggest ones out of that group. And then the ones that came after that were sort of like lower budget, Firestarter, Cujo, stuff like that. And then when you get into the late 80s, early 90s, then you start really dipping down. Firestarter is in kind of that weird realm where it's like, it doesn't feel like they had maybe everything that they needed, but it's still a pretty solid film. The cast is great. Martin Sheen, David Keith is really good. Drew Barrymore is great. I mean, she just like, even as a child, just had it in her. She just had the gift. And George C. Scott, I think, was one of the most interesting people in the whole cast, partially because of his role. He's one of the villains in the film. And there is a point where, through lying and manipulation, he sort of creates a relationship with Charlie, who is the Drew Barrymore character. And I think a lot of that is what makes the second half of the film interesting, because the first half is all action. They're being chased, there's confrontations, there's fire. And then the second half, an event happens and the pacing kind of dips, and you need that sort of like relationship between your hero and your villain. I don't know if you call Charlie a hero. I guess she's the hero. But you have this sort of interesting relationship between like a naive innocent and someone who is working specifically against their best interests. And George C. Scott does like an incredible job of convincing her that he's there to help her. And it's slimy. It's just slimy, but it's good. I mean, that's what if an actor pulls that off, that's what you're looking for. So the whole time I was watching this is just kind of a random aside, but the whole time I was watching this, I was getting a lot of Starman vibes. And I just kept thinking, like, I wish John Carpenter would have directed this. I'm not trying to bag on Mark Lester, but it just felt like someone trying to do John Carpenter, and you're sitting there going like, I wish John Carpenter would have just directed this. Like, could we have just gotten him? But anyway, overall, movie is good. I would recommend. It's not something that I would like rush out to go see. It's a good one. It's a good one. Not great, but pretty good. So that's it for Firestarter, and I will see you in the next one.